bow wow. Bow chicka bow wow. Happy playoffs, everybody. Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets' Serbian Corner. It is a podcast hosted by a sleep-deprived Serbian who is simultaneously loving and hating every second of the playoff months. My name is Miroslav, calling from Pančevo, Serbia, and this will be episode 48 of this slightly revamped show. Our Denver Nuggets are in the Western Conference Finals again. We've seen certain well-known writers predicting them being eliminated by either Wolves or Thunder in round one, and that was a gentleman's sweep by the Nuggets. Then came second round, so naturally ESPN, that house of some great basketball minds, but also a house of amazingly large number of clicks-driven hot takes, social network engineers employed instead of NBA analysts as their writers and analysts to predict the series outcome, and 12 of them picked the Suns, only 4 of them, namely Jerry Bambry, Bobby Marks, Ramona Shelburne, welcome to the club Ramona, all is forgiven, and Young Misuk picked the better team. I kind of think the tide is finally turning. More and more people are admitting what kind of fools they have been, but we'll see. ESPN is taking over the Western Conference Finals games, so expect epic amounts of rectal alpinism towards King James. It's going to be so beautiful to watch if the series happen the way I expect it to. My personal favorite piece of news were Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo admitting publicly they have voted for Embiid for MVP because they were harassed, and Simmons putting it out there that he might regret that decision for the rest of his life. He wanted for that to sound like a joke, but we all know it wasn't. Another favorite part of mine of this amazing Nuggets playoff run, apart from the fact that it is my team that is kicking ass instead of some other, is the fact that the team from Denver will finally be able to unite American sports writers who are traditionally focused on superstars and their individual greatness, and European writers who will always tell you the team is what matters. The first group gets to talk in length about Jokic's otherworldly playmaking and scoring, about his Robin in Jamal Murray, who finally had consecutive super mature games, and also the most lethal two-man game created by those two. But up until the end of Game 4 against the Suns, nobody could have made an honest statement that the combined star power of Jokic and Murray is greater than one of Booker and Durant. Yet, we know deep in our hearts and our souls, even after 2 losses in Arizona, that the Nuggets are a way better team. Sure, Jokic is a unique superstar similar to LeBron, Larry Bird, or Magic Johnson that makes every effing teammate a better player. Steph is in that group too, but it's just a different kind of playmaking from his side. On the Suns, Booker was amazing. His playmaking, though, is nowhere near Nikola's level. There were possessions on Thursday night when you'd see campaign dribble, pass to Booker, dribble, pass to Durant, dribble, heavily contested 2 that sometimes go in and sometimes it doesn't. That's not a team. Suns fans will point out that CP3 got injured 3 quarters into game 2. And by the way, they've lost both of those 2 games he was playing in. But we'll forget to mention he was a constant target on defense because he is 78 years old and he's not taller than me. And I'm serious. I am 6 foot tall in those thick pro shoes. Okay, that's enough rant from me. It's time to introduce my panel for today. First, the guy you haven't listened to, I believe, since June 2020, in one of those quarantine episodes of the NBA show, but you read him often on the DNVR.com. He has been a Colorado sports writer for over a decade, a Nuggets fan for 30 years, and one of the original Denver Stiffs. Please give a warm welcome to Mike Olson. What's up, Mike?
Miroslav, such a pleasure to get to meet you today. Hi, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it feels like we've known each other for a very, very long time, but this is actually the first time we are spending time in the same virtual room.
I am reminded of the long-time listener, first-time caller phrase, but it's nice to finally get to see your face while we chat instead of the back and forth that we have online all the time.
Mike, you are truly great at writing. I'm reading your stuff for like last 8 years or something like that, and that's something I've always wanted to do, and hopefully will be able to do more in my autumn years that are coming soon. So
well, I'm into those. Maybe that's why. So.
Also, you used to be a singer, just like I did many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing you have in common with my other guest today, you used to play the trombone. Now, I didn't, because I was way cooler. I was playing the guitar, but you don't need to comment on that.
It's way cooler, absolutely. Yeah.
You're also a big shot in your daily work, but your passion for writing still lasts. You've seen many ups and downs of our beloved Nuggets in these past 30 years. So how great it is to witness the current iteration of the team.
It's for those of us who've been doing this for that long, and I know folks who've been doing it a lot longer than me, actually, Miro. It's really heartwarming. It's really encouraging to see the team like this. And I wrote a little bit about this last week. It's a different feeling this year than it has been before. A lot of times, even 3 years ago when we made it to the Western Conference Finals, you make it through 2 series where you've got to go to game 7s just to get out of them, out from under 3-1 burdens. And you feel like you're kind of lucky to have gotten there. I feel like we belong there this year. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to keep surprising people through the remainder of this season. So it's exciting.
It's crazy. Jokic was barely 25 back then. Jamal was, 23.
Yeah.
Michael Porter was nowhere
rookie
near.
Season. Mike's rookie season. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's going to be different.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So let me introduce my other guest, the one I have a special bond with for many years,
fellow trombone player,
dating to his days on the Denver Stiffs. I wanted to call him and see if he has changed his outfit since Thursday night, since he probably wrote until 5 a.m. after spending 24 consecutive hours on Twitter, which I know he did. His name is Brendan. I call him Branko. Well, actually, that's a lie. I wanted to call him that, but that's just stupid. But he has everybody's vote of confidence. So welcome. Well, I guess I already said your entire name. Welcome, dude.
Fellas, what's happening? Always happy, first of all, to be on with some fellow musicians. That's the first.
Just for the record, when I wrote this joke with a vote of confidence 6 months ago, I wrote vote exactly like you write, town in Browntown, so completely wrong.
It felt like a 6-month-old joke, Miro. It's perfect.
Good to be on with my 2 most mature friends. It's you guys, Adam and Eric, and you guys clear those 2 for sure. So I'm looking forward to an adult conversation about the Denver Nuggets. Should be fun.
Exciting.
Yeah. Actually, Mike is just the second guest of mine ever to be older than me. So Eric is the other one. So yeah.
Wow.
You wouldn't know
so seniority is real here.
I don't know if I feel honored or just creaky now, but yeah.
Can I tell you guys? I know you have a whole rundown, Miroslav, but can I tell you guys a story about the trombone?
Yes, please.
I was too small, if you can believe it. I know it. You got to really stretch your imaginations for this, but I was a little too small to play the full-size trombone in elementary school, but I was good at it. It was my bet. I had like an intuitive. So the teacher said you should stick with it, but you're too small. So he tied a string around my middle finger to the slide, and I would throw it into, is it 7th or 8th position, Mike?
7th.
7th, thank you. I would throw it all the way out there and catch it with a string on my finger and pull it back. It looked ridiculous. But I did get my own solo once in the 5th grade concert, my own song. So I think that's when I first became a narcissist.
You want to hear a creepy thing?
Yes.
So my next
Creepier
question
than
for
that.
you was, so Brendan, you used to play the trombone just like Mike did. Did you have any anecdotes from
Perfect.
that time? And
Yep.
that was the anecdote.
There you
By
go.
the way,
There it is.
you are able to hear this story and many other cool stories if you go back to February 2019 on the Denver Stiffs podcast channel, when these two gentlemen spoke in depth about both of their careers, writing and otherwise. It was a really cool interview I like to come back to now and then because I'm a mad stalker. Okay, let's jumpstart this show.
Cool.
So for the start, let's check on the recent history. I was asked in official capacity on the Four Corners podcast, shout out Ray and Peter, to predict how the Suns series would unfold. And I was feeling myself that night. I was slamming Suns' depth, their comical defensive potential, their my turn, your turn offense. And yet, when it was time to make an official prediction, I kind of caved, said it would be a tough series, but that there's no way the Suns would get to the game 7. So I ended up actually on a Nuggets in 6, which actually happened, but it was in a way easier fashion than what I predicted when I was faced with the tribunal of digital eternity. So how did your journey look like, right before and through the Suns series? Let's start with Mike. What was your feeling before the series and afterwards?
I found myself in the fortunate position of never having to put that down in writing or online anywhere. But a couple of buddies I was chatting with about it at length. A couple of times I said I thought the Nuggets would win it in 5. So they had a lot to say when the Suns won both of those home games. But yeah, it was. I thought we could take them. They actually. I think we had a couple of tough games there. We should have taken one of those 2 games anyway. They were both pretty close.
B-Dog?
Yeah, I thought I went with Nuggets in 7 on the official DNVR prediction.
Coward.
Well, I felt that way immediately. I wanted to say Nuggets in 5, and then after 2 games, I was so mad at myself for chickening out. I was like, "Oh, this looks like a 5er for sure." Especially when the Chris Paul news came out, which ultimately helped Phoenix, but we didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, after 2 games, I was like, "This is done. This is an easy series." And then it was a good reminder for me in games 3 and 4 that even when there's separation, like when you get to the second round, and I think it's important for Nuggets fans to remember this with the Lakers, even the better team, it's a long series, man, and like it's really hard to sweep, and there's room for, even if it takes one team's best case scenario to compete, there's room for that to happen once, twice, even 3 times in a series. So it was a good reminder that like we often swing between 4 and 7, but look, there's a lot of middle ground.
Yeah, in Europe, we have a saying that it's really, really hard to beat the same opponent twice in a row.
Yeah.
And if you have to do it 4 times in short time span, it's never easy. But we'll see. I'm kind of optimistic things could get a tiny bit easier
Me
in the
too.
next round. But
too,
we'll talk about it soon. Okay, so it's time for a short commercial break. But first, Pearl Jam. All right, we are back. I want to use this segment to talk about the amazing team the Nuggets are. Sure, it's always easier to analyze the games player by player, and we'll do some of that later. But first, I want to talk about these 8 great dudes that have played almost all of the non-garbage minutes. I think I recall DeAndre Jordan playing several real minutes in game 1 against the Wolves. But other than that, it was Jamal, Bruce, KCP, Christian Brown, MPJ, Jeff, Aaron, and Nikola. The 8 guys Michael Malone trusts they will stay on a string defensively, but also can play different styles on offense. Not all playoff games looked like the last one, when those closing 3 minutes of the first quarter were enough for the Suns to completely quit and give us 24 minutes of real garbage time. what is Denver's biggest strength as a unit? I mean, is it that everybody knows their role, their trust in each other, lack of selfishness, coaching, continuity, culture? Pick something, Brendan.
It's a great question. I would say it's the selfishness area of sacrifice, which tends to go hand in hand with knowing your role, but it's the Lakers are in a different place with this than the Suns, but you can't really win a title at the deadline. And part of it is because you have to sort of learn the various ways, the myriad ways you both win and lose together, why that is, who should be where in crunch time. And for as many new pieces as this team in terms of the 1 through 8 is incorporating, the core of it, of who they are, what they want to do, and who the top guys are, it hasn't changed. And their understanding of it is there. And then you look at guys like AG, KCP, and of course, even MPJ, in my opinion, who exemplify this understanding of sacrifice. And he'll say occasionally that he should get more involved, but the reality is on the court, he's found a way to only take up so much space and to demonstrate, I think, a little self-awareness in terms of his role. So for me, Mike, it's that sacrifice selfishness area where, Miroslav joked about campaign. Like, you would never see a player like, especially after the Bones trade, I love him. You would never see a player come in and just hijack possessions from Jokic, Murray, etc.
I think that's right. I think beyond that, for me, it goes back to one of the things you mentioned, Miroslav, and just their time together, both as the core over the years. I mean, this core has enough time together that, you watch Jamal and Joker together, and they're symbiotic, basically,
Right.
and how they revolve around each other on the floor. But I thought that one of the things that took Mike Malone from a really good coach to a great coach this season was his willingness to flex on some things, like playing rookies on the floor, like eating some possible losses during the course of the year to get these guys on the string that they're on now. And so, to Brendan's earlier point, there's an experience both in terms of the long term and in terms of how much time these guys had together this year collectively in comparison to both what we just saw from the Suns and I truly believe what we're about to see from the Lakers. I think they're a better defensive squad because they've got better defensive players,
Sure.
but are they all synchronized the way that we are? That'll be a key to the whole thing.
What's interesting to me? We have, the big three in Nikola, Jamal, and Michael Porter. But then we have the other big three on the team. And these are the guys I like to call the grown-ups. And it's Bruce Brown, KCP, and Aaron Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Because those three guys, I trust them with my life. Those guys, I mean, they can have a bad game. They can have a bad decision. They can, lose you a game. But it's never because they're not trying. Those three guys are so focused. They know what's their job.
Right.
They know, KCP and Aaron are here for the long haul, for the long run. We'll see about Bruce Brown. We can't be too optimistic about his thing. Remember, after these playoffs, these amazing playoffs from him. But when you add those six guys together, and then you have Christian Brown, and that's a really important thing. He's been playing on a college level for a while.
Right.
He wasn't a one and done guy. And that's really, really important because, the only real knock on American young players coming to the NBA is the fact that they've spent only 1 year playing for a professional coach. Because before that, it's just high school teachers and stuff like that. And then if you have a guy like Michael Porter Jr., who was injured for most of his one college year, that's a really big problem for his development. So this is why he needed so much extended time on top of all the injuries that happened afterwards. But we see how many years he took to become what he is today. And today, I'm like, if you ask me if I want to put Michael Porter on LeBron for a few possessions, I will tell you, yeah, why not? I mean, let's try it out. I have no real fears about that. I mean, LeBron, you'll probably have a good matchup against anybody, but he will not be hunting Michael this time around. And then there's the last guy in Jeff Green, a guy I also like a lot. I mean, he's the only guy the Nuggets fans and analysts are split on about whether he should be one of the 8 guys or not. But he's held his part of bargain for now.
Someone has to be the 8th guy. That's the thing. And like the vitriol is inevitable, right? Like he'll be on the bubble of playable in an 8-man rotation the entire time. But I think there's a bottom line that has to be acknowledged in that Malone's 8-man rotation is working. It has worked through 2 rounds. And that includes with Jeff Green on the floor. Now there are lowlights. I mean, there are long stretches. My biggest problem with the watch along right now is I feel like I need to filter my Jeff Green takes a little more, like just a live reaction's a little rough. But there have been some moments defensively. There have definitely been lowlights. He's not rebounding. But I think we have to acknowledge that whatever it is they want to do with these 8 guys, having Green on the floor hasn't ruined it, right? And it hasn't sabotaged that. And again, someone has to be that 8th guy. And we spent so long hoping fewer players would play and the rotation would get trimmed down. And of course, naturally, now that we're here, it's like, could you open it up a little bit, maybe? How about 9 or 10 guys, you know?
I made a joke at the end of Game 6, like Malone finally made an adjustment. We see Peyton Watson and Ish Smith and everybody
garbage time.
Garbage time.
Exactly. He's so funny, man. Of course, he played him in garbage time after teasing his minutes.
It'll be interesting to see if they try to hunt Jeff at all. I don't think the Lakers are deep enough to do it. Basically, I think it's going to end up being easier. Even in the minutes that Jeff is out there to spell others, I think it's going to be easier to hide Jeff in those minutes with who the Lakers are going to have on the floor than the other way around. So I feel good about this 8. I really do.
Yeah, we'll spend more time on the Lakers matchup in segment 4. Before that, I wanted to ask you, did you see any real weaknesses from the team perspective on the Nuggets that could make trouble for the Nuggets in the coming series?
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I do think that if somebody's going to end up getting exposed, when you look at how things could lay out, I think it's still possible that it could be Jeff on the second team. I think Joker's got a heck of a matchup this round, and it'll be interesting to see how they end up going at him that way. But man, it feels like Aaron's matchup is favorable. It feels it depends on how they match up with him on the far side. It's good. I think last round there was a lot to love. And as long as we can find a way for the bench to show up a little more when we go on the road, the Los Angeles can be a tough place to play. I have high hopes. Should be fun.
Yeah, I think there's probably fewer of these than ever before. You know, in the Jokic years past, even the lost years to injury, I think I could have conceived of Denver winning any series, right? If it goes just right for them and this issue doesn't rear its head. And I think this is the team more than ever where you go, oh, the basketball argument is close to airtight. There is a bit of the non-Jokic minutes on the road. Now, Bruce Brown was so good in Denver. He also plays with the starters a fair amount. But those 3 guys were ultimately good enough in Denver. Not so much on the road. That's to be expected to some extent. I think the Lakers are a deeper team than Denver, actually. I think they're a deeper team than Phoenix. Just in terms of they have more guys beyond their top, I guess, 4, 5, where you go, it could be his turn tonight, right? It could be this guy's. And sometimes, as like Lonnie Walker's the namesake example right now of just, well, that guy got his 15 and like we didn't plan for that and we lost the star minutes. So I do worry a little bit about the non-Jokic minutes, the bench minutes, particularly on the road. That's one area where the Lakers could have an advantage. They've post-trade deadline, their depth is there, I think. As much as I would love to say that they're just a band of mercenaries, I think they're figuring it out.
Before the Suns series, the one thing we were mostly scared of was, the pick and roll defense. When you have Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. By the way, Devin and Kevin, what the hell?
It's a T-shirt for next year.
That sounded scary, right? I mean, 2 years ago, CP3 was, just an enigma that, the bad team that we had back then couldn't solve at all. And Devin Booker was a better player this time around than 2 years ago. And then you get the extra superstar in Durant. But what we've seen this time around is, we know that Jokic has problems when he's left on an island. But as Tim Connolly once said years ago, why the hell would we leave him on an island?
Right,
there are ways to make that pressure point go away and just help him in one thing he cannot do in defense well. And I mean, kudos to Aaron Gordon for his defense on KD this series. I mean, KD was looking like Jason Tatum in this series. I mean, seriously. I mean, look at those percentages. That's not really good.
And
I mean, it looked better than Tatum, but it wasn't more effective.
And just really quick while we're on the point, I'm glad you mentioned Aaron Gordon because I think we need to make sure he gets credit for it. Like KD definitely missed some shots he's hit in the past. Fatigue crept in, the heavy minute, heavy field goal. There's no doubt, but I think every attempt, every make or miss, Gordon did his best to making it a taxing effort, right? I am there with you physically. I am there to contest every jumper. Like none of it will be easy. For me, a big part of it throughout that series was don't bail either of these guys out, considering their workloads. And I just think you have to give Gordon a tremendous amount of credit for that relentlessness. And then just the game plan discipline. It's so hard to guard that guy without fouling. I thought he got a tough whistle, but it's not just that Durant looked tired and old to me. I thought AG looked tremendous defensively.
Mike,
couldn't agree more.
What about KCP on Devin Booker? I mean, Devin Booker made like 500 points in games 3 and 4, but then he was put back on the ground. Was it something amazingly from KCP and the other guys switching on Booker, or was it just regress to the mean and just, I mean, you cannot shoot 90% from the field forever. I mean, at one point you will have to start missing shots.
I'm sure it's some of the latter, Miroslav, but I think a lot of it had to do with, Game 5 is when the full court pressure picks up, right, on Booker, especially from KCP, but across the board. And you saw him, was it the very first run of that series where Booker slugged him in the mouth and bloodied him up? You could tell it was going to be a battle through the game. And now the Nuggets have those types of guys to put on a guy like that through an entire game, right? You pull out KCP and you can put in Bruce or Christian right away and apply the same pressure. And man, full court like that for 48 minutes. And I'd have left without talking to the media as well. So
twice.
Okay, it's time to take our second break. Don't go anywhere.
All right, I'll stay here.
Oh, you again. Okay, I guess we still have your attention. Let's now go full American NBA podcast and talk about the superstars. So, Jokic was stupid good. After 11 games, he is 5th in scoring, 30.7 points per game, third in rebounding, 12.8 rebounds per game, 9.7 assists. That's second in the playoffs in this season. And his plus minus is like plus 8.3, which is tied for first with, you guessed it, Aaron Gordon and MPJ. All that in only being 23rd in minutes per game, just a bit less than 38 minutes per game, which you should feel pretty good about it. Now, his current playoff box plus minus this season, yeah, I went there, is 14.3, which would be fourth greatest playoff run in history after 2009 LeBron, 1991 Jordan, and 1988 Hakeem. His career playoff box plus minus now is 10.3, and that's second only to Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
You know what? It checks out, guys. Dives with the eye test.
He sounds like a very valuable player, doesn't he? Maybe even a most valuable sort of a player.
I mean, what the hell was that from him? I mean, to be honest, is there anything new you've seen from him in these 11 playoff games, or is it just more of the usual stuff?
For me, the biggest difference, Mike, is I would say it's more of the usual stuff, but more specifically this dynamic of he has now seen everything. And he went through those MVP seasons without his firepower and his running mates. And like there's the narrative of player X slowed him down. Anyone who watching closely knows it's a double team, sometimes a triple team. Like without those guys in the playoffs. And I think at this point, between all the battles with his guys, the MVP seasons without it, those playoff runs without him, I think he's just sort of there's nothing he hasn't seen. And we know how smart he is. We know how he grows. Maybe fool him once, shame on you or him or whatever the hell the expression is, but you're just not going to get him again is the point. That's what I'm getting at. And so I just think it's that, like at this point, you're not going to catch Jokic by surprise. And to me, it kind of goes hand in hand with the minutes thing too, but the numbers are ridiculous. It gets almost creepy and eerie if you're really watching, because how calm is he? How in control is he? Has he looked remotely flustered entering the Western Conference Finals? I would say no, Mike.
Never once. And he's just so refined now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything added to the game. I think it's that everything now just is so much more in rhythm, in course. He's got every tool and he uses them so thoughtfully and creatively, and that's what makes the guy on the other side of the equation half the time look so foolish anymore. He is at the peak of his game. He's not even 30 yet, and he's got a game that should last him until he's like 62. So I look forward to watching the next 34 years of Jokic at center for the Nuggets, because it's just remarkable, just crazy.
I am so grateful that he decided not to go for the MVP. I'm so grateful he said, "Oh, guys,
I know.
this is the
so
stuff."
obvious."
Now,
so obvious he just decided
I have 6 weeks of like playing recreational basketball. Sweet. I mean, look how engaged on defense he is now. He has no problem
Totally, man.
putting like 80% effort on defense every time around, and then just being his best self on offense, which is almost impossible if you think about it. We need to talk a bit about his conditioning, because that guy is a crazy athlete. I mean, that's just amazing. You see, if you harass Kevin Durant, he will not be as good on offense. If you harass Devin Booker, I mean, he was kind of jogging around Jamal Murray in those games 3 and 4. I'm not going to lie about that. But on a six game series, if you put a lot of pressure on the guy, he will snap at some point, and he will not. This guy, I mean, I don't know what to say. I haven't even checked his, steals and blocks in this and deflections in this playoff series, because I've seen his defense this time around. And of course, he's still making those business decisions when a guy is just, goes around him and scores, he will not foul him. Who cares? I mean, it's just 2 points, and 2 points, equals on average like a 100 offensive rating, whatever. So it's fine. It's not a problem. So yeah, maybe I'm wrong about that. I have to double check that. Probably not. But I'm so impressed with his defense, man, and the rest of the stuff is just what we see night in, night out. I mean, there might be some wrinkles to the actions they're using now comparing to the regular season, and I would need to have a better basketball mind to talk about those. But basically, it's Nuggets basketball in 80% of Suns series. If you wink a bit on those games 3 and 4.
Well, and you saw him take that opportunity, right, to try to take him out of the game. There was a lot of flopping on Jokic beginning in the early part of the game, and I think because people don't pay as much attention, the book on Jokic for some folks, I think, still is that he can be flustered off the floor. Take cheap fouls, or you can get him to commit some. And there were so many times this year that you expected him to start screaming for the foul, something during the series where that would have been him in the past. And he's just focused. He's just head down, does not care if he gets the call, great. If he doesn't, he's back at the other end of the floor, and he is not taking himself out of the game or out of the play anymore. It's a big deal. Great
take, man. And I was talking about this with a friend of the show and quasi-host, former host, Voya. We were talking about, excuse me, that same thing where I think one of Jokic's weaknesses in the past is he would sometimes forget who the opponent is. And I think he was fighting some bigger picture battles, you know what I mean? Like he's willing to get injected in February to have himself be heard about some of the BS. But it also used to infect his playoff performances. And I think right now it goes back to the eerie calmness thing I was talking about. He's like, all right, he's just laughing up the court rather than losing focus and yelling at a ref. He's just laughing like, all right, I guess I'm not getting the calls today, but it doesn't matter. And his steely focus, I think, is a big part of it. And Miroslav, what you brought up too. I think these are the most underappreciated parts of his series right now. This is to be expected, but listen, if Jokic got filleted in that series defensively, which he did not, right? On the nights when Booker was going off and Durant was going off, it was not Jokic. It would lead the headlines. And it's a little too quiet for me, man, in a series with so much firepower for him to have been so far down the list of problem points defensively. Actually, a plus defender, I thought, in that series. Denver's front court was great. It's crazy, and it's not getting talked about enough. And then little bow on it, just because I'm rambling, I know, but you also touched on this. How much he has in the tank right now on May 13. I don't think we've seen this for Jokic yet. I think he has another gear. I think he's got another reserve left to tap into.
And 4 days of rest till we see the Lakers.
That's right. Yeah.
What you said about quieting some voices. I was listening to Chris Broussard today, and I was laughing out loud, man. It was like I was listening to Brendan Vogt. Like he was defending Jokic for not having Jamal 2 years ago, for not having Jamal a year ago. Like you cannot hold it against him. He didn't have his guy. I mean, what the hell were you talking about for the last 2 years, man? Total revisionist history. I loved it. I really loved it. Okay, so Jamal, let's be honest. He was up and down.
Yeah.
You know what? Nuggets were able to afford that so far because they are a great team. We've seen him getting hot, then getting cold, and then getting smart. Some of his passes to Jokic are just awesome. Sometimes, although not often enough, in my humble opinion, he surprises us and makes a great pass to Porter or KCP. I definitely think his shot is more pure after he gets his teammates involved first. And when they start running and send an inside-out pass to him, he is burning the net every time. It's when he is in rhythm, I mean, he is just a dead-eye shooter. So what was the best thing you saw from Jamal? And is there another thing we haven't seen yet, but we need to see it, for the rest of the playoffs?
After you, Mike.
I think I think that Jamal, I actually think this might be the series where Jamal does pull MPJ in to the series. And I go back to the end of the season when, Joker was making himself a bit more of a non-factor in things. And those last 10 games, Jamal was feeding Mike like crazy, just throwing him pass after pass. I see a lot more of this in this series because I think that the Lakers are a better team to focus in on the two-man game. So I think it'll be a matter as much of anything as opportunity that way. And so that's my hope anyway. But I don't know, Brandon, what do you think?
I think the biggest thing I would ask from him right now, more of, is taking and making open threes. And I think in that bubble series, going to the rack sort of applies within this logic as well. In that bubble series, he was coming off of Michael Jordan-esque play. And he looked a little hesitant almost to, I don't know if it's put those percentages or that newfound reputation on the line. And I wouldn't go so far as to call it scared at all, but juxtaposed with the utter fearlessness in rounds 1 and 2. I thought it was a little bit like, all right, I did my part. Now let's see what Jokic can do. And sometimes we need more of that from Jamal too. We're very unfair on him, but I think taking and making the open threes is just something that is going to put a lot of pressure on that Lakers defense. Go to the rim, be willing to draw those fouls. It's not about more shots or more dribbling. It's just about a fearlessness and decisiveness in when he attacks. And I guess almost just like, that get to that Booker stage of not shot making, because that's almost impossible, but belief in yourself.
I think that's a killer take.
I'm getting this shot up, man. Like, I'm not worried about it. And I think the overthinking creeps in because he has a difficult job of setting up an electric 5-man unit, but then also needing to be the best scorer some nights. I don't think we realize how hard it is to oscillate between those things.
I think it's a killer take because it really, the times I see Jamal, I feel like when Jamal is most in trouble is that decisiveness piece.
Right.
When he can't make up his mind whether he's going or not, and all of a sudden the ball is sticking, and that'd be the one piece I'd like to see for sure.
Right.
I have a snake oil seller kind of take here about Jamal. I think he works on adrenaline.
Yeah.
Like, he needs his adrenaline to be super high, to be completely engaged on both sides of the court. And maybe it would be smart for him to just let the big Somborian beast cook a bit at the beginning, then play some good defensive possessions, and then get into the groove, like when you're already pumped up, because I know you're gonna hit those shots.
Right.
I mean, it's just he's such a fascinating player to follow. He really is. Might be the most fascinating guy on the team. And
we still don't know who he is, man. And like, who watches more than we do, but we don't know. And it's crazy to me. And I think playing alongside a guy like Jokic, I think the role of second best player is a unique thing. And watching him navigate it both on and off the court, I mean, sometimes it can be utterly frustrating, right? But I think fascinating is actually the operative word, as we've seen it go in every direction.
We watched him, psych himself up that way against Shamet the other night in the second half, right? I mean, you watched him push that button for himself, just trying to get himself back in the game. I think he agrees with you, Miroslav.
Oh, one more note on Jamal. So an extremely small percentage of his passes in the playoffs are going to Mike. I think only like 6% of his passes. I think it's only like 32 total passes have gone to Mike. 10 assists from those 32 passes. It's his highest assist total to a particular player outside of Jokic on the team, despite so few passes. Some of this is how Denver's offense operates, right? A lot of it is Jokic finding Mike or extra passes, swing passes. I get it. But I do think one more thing to ask from Jamal as a point guard is like, I just think you got to trust him, man. If you're in transition and Mike is open, pass him the rock, in my humble opinion.
I believe it was like third quarter of the game 5, and it was still a close game, and Jamal and Nikola were just spamming pick and roll,
right,
like 10 times in a row, and it looked like it's going another. I mean, it was a pick and roll again, but then all of a sudden Jamal moved next to Nikola's screen and just slang an assist to open Michael Porter in the corner, and I was like, yes,
right,
please, more of this. More of this. You have a 100% shooter from the corners. I mean,
he's being guarded, and this is one thing about Mike's playoffs I don't think people are realizing. Like, there's utility even when he's not hitting at a high rate. They are guarding Mike like an elite shooter. The spacing, they are watching Jokic score 40, and they're still going, I'm not helping off this dude. And so I think, given how closely he's been guarded, how infrequent the shots are coming, he's still, if it feels to you like Porter's having a tough series playoffs from deep, he's still at 40% on 6.6 attempts. Like, let him shoot, especially when he's open. And I do think you're going to see him hit a rhythm eventually.
I also think that if the Lakers decide to guard him with somebody as short as Booker, like the Suns did, then Mike should just consider himself open, period.
I agree.
So,
okay, Brendan, high five. The Brigenda lives.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm my MPJ quota's hit. We can talk about other stuff now.
It's time for our final break. Stop thinking about listening to Suns podcasts again and stay with us. All right, final segment here. I always wanted to say that. Screw you, Maris, you don't own that phrase. So let's look a bit into the near future.
Okay.
The Lakers await. And I'm just going to say it. Torch them fools. Are you telling me I should be afraid of a fake team miraculously constructed on the trade deadline that has beaten two very flawed and or injured teams? I mean, I wouldn't even be afraid of an agent champion that doubled down on Jordan Poole by offering him a near max contract, and then now they watch him be a target in the playoffs, not to mention he is also one snarky comment away from another punch in the face by Draymond. But enough about the Warriors. Their season is over. Let's think about the Lakers, and let's spitball about them before we give out our final and official prediction for the series. It was maybe 6 weeks ago, Voya was here with me, and I wanted to speak about several playoff matchups back when we had no idea who would be the first round opponent for the Nuggets. But we were a bit verbose on the previous segments, so we had to pick only one of them, and of course, it was the Lakers because that's the most fun thing to talk about. And what I said back then, and I'll stick to it, is, okay, they have Anthony Davis. Cool. So Anthony Davis and what army is going to slow down Nikola? Have we ever seen AD guarding Nikola for the whole series alone, one-on-one? Or have we seen him guarding him next to, those other 7-foot dudes?
Right.
So you can put Vando on Nikola and AD as a help defender, but that's going to damage their already bad half-court offense. And if you go the other way, who's going to slow down Jamal? Schroeder? Reeves? D'Angelo? Lonnie? I trust the Nuggets defense if they are responsible on offense and they limit, the live ball turnovers.
Yeah.
And get back on defense, the way they should. Again, Lakers' half-court offense is not very good.
Right.
And Adam said it best on Twitter on Friday night. The Nuggets are today way better than in 2020, and the Lakers are way worse than what they were in the bubble. I mean, the clutch shooter Anthony Davis is shooting 27% on 1 3-point attempt per game in these playoffs, for crying out loud. So who do you think is going to have a more difficult job between Nikola, Jamal, Michael Porter in this series?
I think it's got to be Jokic. I would love to I would love to just rip into Anthony Davis like exclusively, say nothing nice about him. But I can't right now. I think he's playing at a really high level defensively and on the glass. I think this rebounding battle is going to be earth shifting, like continent shifting. I don't know. That's going to be crazy.
He was really good on Kevon Looney.
He was unbelievable. He's locked in right now on the glass. He's locked in right now on the glass.
I'm joking. Sorry.
I know you are because it's Jokic. But look, Looney is a rebounding machine, dude. Like, I don't think that's a small thing. Obviously, size advantage, all that stuff. So, but also Jokic we talked about where his motor is at. I think this is going to be the one that requires exhausting himself the most, because I think part of it is going to be exhausting Anthony Davis. Get Jokic going off movement, a lot of high pick and rolls. Just make Anthony Davis move. He has to stay glued to Jokic in a way he couldn't against like Memphis. That free throw line block on Ja, like I don't know if he can really commit to those in the same way. So if he's glued to Jokic, I think a big part of Jokic's job is gassing him, obviously because Jokic will score, but because I think you want to take Anthony Davis down a level defensively. That's the end. He's not, to me, on Jokic Embiid's level, right, in terms of the offensive consistency, but he is the best defensive big, maybe the best defender in the league, and that's where he's a superstar to me.
I don't disagree, and I think the hottest take of the whole thing is that rebounding battle. I think you're absolutely right. But wherever that goes is going to be a lot of where this series goes. And Miro, you brought up the help defense that way. I think because of that, it's going to be some pretty massive frontline battles, right? And Vando was actually a first-year player here when we were in the bubble, when Mike was a rookie, right? And they were spending a lot of time with each other, against each other back in those days on a practice court more than on the court regularly. But Mike's going to have to be the fourth part of that equation. You know, AG is going to have to be the fifth part of that equation. That those three exceptional rebounders on our team are going to have to be ultra focused on at least taking those two guys out of the equation to the best of their ability.
The only one more thing, Miroslav, I'm thinking about the Mike matchup. You know, Vanderbilt, I think right now you pencil him in as the starter on that team. But in this matchup, can you play Vanderbilt? Because I think he's a great defender, right? You would play him, I think, to slow Murray.
Yeah.
But thinking about the half-court offense, the Lakers, that is, one of Murray, Jokic, or Porter, no matter how you slice it, probably Porter as I think about it, one of those guys just doesn't have to play defense now, right? Like the Nuggets will Venmo Jared Vanderbilt every time he shoots.
Michael Porter was really good at being, a guy that was roaming the paint. He was really good at it. I was really impressed with that.
Yeah,
because he's probably the best shot blocker on the team. And I think that's a pretty sweet spot for him on defense.
So if he can help off of Vando on that, I mean,
helping off of Vando is like an understatement, right? Like on the Nuggets, amazing high-powered five-man half-court offense, we still have our own concerns about Gordon being ignored, right? Now you think about Jared Vanderbilt, who's not the shooter, the passer, the finisher at the rim, any of it. So Mike should be getting 3-second violations. You know what I mean? If he's guarding Vando, that's the guy. That's the guy you let shoot every time. So I wonder, conversely though, if the Lakers go with 3 guards, you were talking about the advantage Mike now has from a size perspective, how much easier that makes life for Jamal. So there is a little bit of already on the surface level of the starter matchups. Like, I think the Lakers have to make the first decision.
I think the Nuggets will play Wendo off the court. And I really hope that at some point LeBron is going to be the one guarding Jokic. And, he's smaller than Nikola, but he doesn't look smaller because he's a giant human being.
Yeah.
And I don't think he would get the benefit of the doubt like Tucker gets in Philly, because he's a huge guy, and even though it's the Lakers, it's the refs and it's everything, I kind of think, LeBron would not get away with being super physical with Nikola, because when LeBron is super physical, it shows. You can see it. He's a massive dude. So.
Yes.
And we do remember. You remember that play Nikola had, on LeBron like 6-7 years ago when he was playing 1-on-1 and he just scored on him. And when they asked him why he did it, he said, "I had a mismatch," and everybody laughed. But he actually had a mismatch, because if you have a 6'8" guy, you're not stopping Nikola. So yeah, that's one of my hopes, to see if you have the front court of LeBron and AD, which is, by the way, the best front court they can take out, but it might not be big enough for the Nuggets exclusively, really.
Well, and I think every time the Suns tried to go small that way, you still could leave big enough guys who could switch on the court where, we've talked about a lot about, both Nikola and Mike being able to be exposed in previous schemes that way, but Mike is no longer that guy. And that's a part of why Nikola is no longer getting exposed in those schemes as well. So, if you do go small, who do you put on Mike on the offensive end? D'Angelo? He's gonna tear him apart. And he ought to be able to still defend whoever he's got against him on that end as well also. So even if they do neutralize Nikola a little bit that way, and I think they could with either AD or LeBron, the magic of Joker is he knows what to do in those moments. He pulls you apart from within, basically. So,
Miro, are you thinking that they're going to put LeBron on Jokic and AD on AG so that he can just kind of play free safety?
I think that's their best bet.
Don't you think LeBron plays a little too much free safety too, though? Like, I don't know if he wants to play that much defense. Like, he is, and I don't know where. This is the eternal question, I think, in this matchup is, where is LeBron at, right? In his career, he is an all-time athlete at, I only need so much here. I only have so much to give. Here is when I apply the pressure. And I think we're at this point in his career, that question is more interesting than ever, right? He did do it a little bit last night of like, you know what? I can get to the rim right now. I have this in me. Across 7, it didn't look like it. Defensively, it didn't look like it. It's spotty. So is LeBron guarding Jokic for 7 games? Now, I know it's about the Anthony Davis help, but are you exhausting LeBron there? And to the point where he's just a jump shooter on the other end? Like, I don't mind that as a Nuggets fella.
Well, and for me, that's the big secret to the whole series is, I think LeBron, I hate to sound like Brooks here. I think LeBron is aging. Let's put this a little more kindly.
Sure. Yeah.
I think AD is not up for 48 minutes for 4 games, let alone 7. I think we're young. I think we're strong. And I think especially because we've got 4 games at altitude, we just run them off the floor over and over and over again. And by game 5, let's see if they've still got any gas in the tank,
AD is such a hollow guy. I mean, he's big. He is a pterodactyl, but I think he weighs like 190 pounds because he's super light. He falls down so easily. I mean, Facu Campazzo put him down, on
look, I know he won the title, but we were watching him fade away on Monte Morris, right? Like, bro, what's happening?
He's a bigger KD. I mean, he's just that kind of pushable.
Yeah, and it's if they put him, straight 1-on-1 on Nikola, that would probably be their best shot against the Nuggets because he really is a really, really good defender.
He's spectacular, yeah.
But for how long is he gonna stay healthy?
That's a lot. That's
against 280 behemoth.
It's the rebounding battle with Looney is not the same thing as defending Jokic. Of course, we know this, and And then also, I think Jokic's 3-point shot is enough. It's there enough right now. He spent just enough time, this genius. He spent just enough time at the end of the season figuring it out. And again, I don't think you want him shooting 9 threes, but whoever's guarding him, and it's probably AD in my opinion, has to take that earnestly, has to play him honestly. And you want him out of the paint. And that's where guys like Jamal and AG have to be merciless, right? And don't let anyone off the hook. But this is not the same thing as sort of, he's been a monster, so I don't want to diminish it, but just camping out in the paint and sort of choosing when you ruin everyone's day. I think his job is much different in this series.
Yeah, Nikola made 7 threes on Rudy Gobert 3 years ago in playoffs. So,
Yeah.
if you try to leave him completely open,
you can't do that right now. He's hitting.
You cannot do that.
Is he at like 40+% in the playoffs?
47, I think.
Yeah.
I was going to say 48, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. You're hitting him.
Yeah, he was a
better
bit
not
better.
sag off.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Okay, it is time for our predictions. And you have to be really careful what you're going to say now. I'm going to open the chat. Also, I'm going to show what the chat is thinking, what will be the result of this series. So be careful what you're going to say, because this guy is going to remember it forever. So who wants to start? You want me to start?
I will start because I know I will start because I did not have to say one for the last round. So
Okay, good.
that seems only fair. I think we're the better team. I think we're the stronger team. I see a series falling together a lot like the one we just played. I think LeBron's a monster, and I think AD will show up at least once. And I see Nuggets in 6.
I'm going Nuggets in 6. I think the Lakers at this stage, they just have this series in front of them. Can LeBron and AD be good enough, great enough for a couple of games? Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to leave a little room in there, I think, for the whistle. If you're that type of fearful fan, I think, look, it's just a reality of this matchup. But I think there's a small chance that side of the bracket was actually horrible, that the Grizzlies were at the end of their rope. There were some big injuries. The Kings, who I was impressed by their fight, and I don't want to do this as a small market guy, they were the worst defense in the playoffs, right? They were a historically bad defense for a high seed in the playoffs, including some of the Denver years of Denver teams of past. Is it that surprising that they lost in 7? No. Were the Warriors actually good? I'm not sure. I'm not sure they were, man. I'm not sure we ever saw enough to say for sure that Warriors team was good. So I'm taking the Lakers seriously, but I think there's a 10% chance that this series reveals to us that side of the bracket was actually horrible the whole time, and the best team in the West has been staring us in the face since, 3 months ago.
Okay, I'm going to stand next to my guy, Patrick Rasmussen, and I'm going to say the same what he said. Nuggets in 5,
Love it.
Only loss in game 3. And I'm going to add one more thing on that. I'm going to be pissed after that game 3. Because I think they're going to have them in game 3 as well. It's just going to be, maybe four fouls on Jokic in first half or something like that.
Sure.
I mean, you need to be reasonable enough to say that they'll probably put him in the foul trouble at least once in this series, if not twice. So yeah, if things go well enough, I mean, this whole season has been strange because I talked to a lot of guys that are off the grid. They are not online talking with us every day.
Normal people,
yeah, people with lives.
Regulars.
Right.
Yeah, and what all of them say to me is, I don't think the NBA was this bad for a long time. This is their take. Everybody is bad, so this is why the Nuggets are good. No, man. The NBA is really, really freaking good. But the Nuggets are just the best basketball team right now. I think that's why it looks like that. You see the flaws of other teams because you don't see it in your team. And that's basically it.
Sometimes
Great take.
Sometimes I'm like, man, the league is in a better place than ever, right? So much young talent everywhere, actually. And we complain about parity. I think especially because people don't know if they trust Denver. This is the least I've ever seen the consensus public opinion on who's going to win the title. People do not know, right? That's awesome. On the other hand, I watch the Nuggets and then I watch every other team, and I think Jokic is the only good player in the league, and everyone else has a lot of work to do. So I'm in between. I go back and forth.
Okay, Brendan, we have one super chat. Can you please read it for me? Because it's
Sure.
too
Zach
far.
Rhodes, hello from Colorado. Love the show.
Yes, and that were the super chats. Okay.
Well read.
Thank you, guys. This was very fun, very insightful. Mike, do you have something cooking for us this WKND, aka weekend for the DNVR?
I keep thinking that I'm going to write about something besides the Nuggets, but man, that's just not on the table for at least the foreseeable future. Anybody who's been doing this for a while knows that the last 3 Western Conference Finals that the Nuggets have attended, they have won a total of 4 games against the Los Angeles Lakers. So time to do a little payback.
Let's go.
I hope that's what I'm going to be writing about. But
Destiny calls, fellas. Destiny calls.
Let's see.
B-Dog, thanks for pissing off Michelle by wasting your free time with me. It's Saturday.
She did not love it. She did not love it. But I'm happy. I'm happy. Come on. Another show with the fellas. What a treat.
As for you, my dear listener, thank you for staying with us until the very end. Not the bitter end, just the end. You are an awesome human being and have great taste for Serbian hosted Nuggets podcasts in English. So see you next time, and idemo Nuggetsi.